This is the god of Transformers, Primus, a figure that I've been very excited to talk about. The 01 Studio Seed is a figure by the same company that released that beautiful Unicron a couple of years ago, and as I mentioned in the ranking of my entire collection, which I think is kinda due for an update, you might remember that that's my favorite figure by far. So now it's time to see if this new installment is up to the task, or if it's going to disappoint in some way. A huge thank you to Show Z Store for sponsoring this review, and a big thank you to everyone who supports this channel by using the code GABOTFR in this little box up here. And now, let's talk about Primus. I don't even have to say it, this figure is gorgeous. Just like Unicron before him, this figure is an excellent representation of that design, and it looks beautiful in person. Personally, I like the Unicron design better, I just don't like seeing all the planet panels all around here, but that is somewhat faithful to the original design. And it's not that it looks bad at all. It is cast in this blue, red, and this desaturated purple plastic that complement each other in a very good way. Although I will say that I think it could be a lighter shade. Not the borderline white plastic that they used in the original prototypes, but also not as dark as it is here. I think a medium tone might have been best. But anyway, it also has tons of painted details on top to give it even more visual variety. We have silver shades, gunmetal gray, gold, red, etc. which all work to make this figure look very good. And all that without counting the sculpture, which is just crazy. While Unicron was pretty smooth for the most part, here you're hardly going to find any surface without some sort of mechanical detail. The internal robot parts alone already look very detailed, but the planet panels on top are just filled to the brim with them. Side note, out of the box there are several things that you have to put on yourself, like all these translucent semispheres included in these runners. A bit of a long process, I will talk about it later, although I do want to mention this pair that connects to the side of the chest and the back, as well as this one on the chest where this small LED circuit must be inserted, so that after installing two LR521 batteries we can turn it on through a magnet and it looks okay. It's not crazy, but it's appreciated. Although you can see the circuit when it's turned off and it's not the most aesthetic thing. And it also includes these spikes, which are actually towers for the planet mode. They are made out of flexible plastic and yeah, very easy to install. Also, like Unicron, the transformation is somewhat symmetrical, so he is practically the same from the front and the back, as evidenced by the missiles, or rather nuclear bombs, that he has both on his chest and his back. And that results in a back that is as clean as the chest, which I will say is my least favorite part of this figure, because I think they should have pronounced the shape more to better resemble the animated design. Just a bit of a nitpick. And to finish off, let's zoom in on that beautiful head. I love how it looks. Although maybe he looks a little too young for a wise and all-powerful god, but in that case so does Jesus, so it works. And the eyes can also be turned on by magnets. I said they can also be turned on by magnets. Yeah, it's almost imperceptible. It's the same separately packed circuit as the one on the chest, but it's placed in a somewhat questionable way, and not even by turning off all the lights can you see it clearly. I mean, compared to Unicron, you can barely tell that this one's on. Plus, that figure needed two giant LR44 batteries, compared to these teeny tiny LR521 cells, which I think could have something to do with how dimly these LEDs light up. What a shame. But yeah, I think this figure is beautiful overall. There's a couple of things that I would have done differently, but overall I can't complain. He is simply one of the most striking figures in my entire collection. In terms of accessories, this figure has a good amount, starting with all the previously mentioned translucent semispheres. Only 4 are for the robot mode, which I already showed you how to install. The others that you see in this mode are because they are in the alt mode panels, so I will show you how to install them later. And this small detail greatly increases the visual appeal of this guy. You also get the 10 previously mentioned towers, each one has a different connection size, so they are easier to locate. It also includes this base, which works better for the planet mode, but at least in this mode we have storage in the back by connecting it to the missile cover panels and giving it kind of a halo if you want it. I personally don't like it, so let's just remove it. There's more to say about it in the alt mode. For now, let's just talk about this alternate head that it also comes with, which looks great and appears to be based on the Transformers universe design. It's not as well articulated as the one it comes out of the box with, and personally I like the way it looks a little less. This one doesn't have an LED feature, but it doesn't make a big difference. But this head has a great gimmick because it's a headmaster. Kinda. I'm sure we're all familiar with the concept of headmasters, a small robot that transforms into the head of a larger robot, and that's kinda what this head is, but instead of being a head that transforms into a figurine, it's more like a figurine that is stored inside the head, and that's a bit of a shame really. But once transformed, here we have an Alpha Trion! A very nice detail that they included. You can leave the face connected to his back, but I prefer to remove it honestly. And this small guy has a little bit of articulation, like absolutely nothing at the head, a ball joint at the arm, ball joint at the elbow, the shoulder pad falls with relative ease, waist rotation, ball joints at the legs, he can kick forwards this far and back about this far. Very good split, about 90 degrees of bend at the knee, and finally the feet can move up and down. But as I said, I like the other head better, so I can leave this mini Alpha Trion on the shelf next to Primus, and it looks great. Although of course, it's totally out of scale. And the feet have small magnets which will help us to turn on the LEDs, and that is very useful. And finally, you get a collector's card. This one doesn't even have statistics, it's just pictures on either side. And yeah, the accessories are kind of minor, but they are not bad. And like Unicron, it's not like he really needs a melee weapon or anything like that, so obviously I get why he doesn't have one. And now let's quickly go see... Come back here. Look back here. What do you think about this one? She didn't like it either. As previously mentioned, we have a 360-degree rotation at the head and a very slight hinge joint up and down. These turrets here are on a ball joint and a hinge joint at the base. 360 degrees on this ratchet joint at the shoulder. The arm can move out on this ratchet on the shoulder here, and there's another outward ratchet joint in this section here. This allows the arm to move out this far. Bicep rotation, a double jointed die-cast metal ratchet joint at the elbow, but sadly it can only do 90 degrees. We have a ratchet joint at the wrist for some reason. And we have individually articulated fingers with a ball joint at the base, a hinge at the middle, and a hinge at the tip. The thumb also is connected with a ball joint at the base, with a hinge there and a hinge at the middle. We have a ratchet rotation at the torso for some reason, and we also have a ratchet rotation at the waist. They even included a ratchet joint at the ab crunch. And what I love about this one is that it reveals a lot of mechanical detail as you bend it, which is a big improvement when compared to their Unicron's figure ab crunch. The front skirts can move out of the way and they can rotate, which allows him to kick forward this far in a very nice ratchet joint, and the back skirts are the same as the front, allowing him to kick back this far. And do be careful with these two joints because a subscriber showed me that these joints can get very loose. It can be fixed just disassembling the entire thing, but just be careful. The side skirts can move out of the way, enabling an excellent split worthy of a god. We get a thigh rotation, a double jointed die-cast metal ratchet joint at the knee, just be sure to move in on this upper piece. You could move this lower section, but that's technically more for the transformation, so that's not the intended use, but you could still use it if you wanted to. And finally, the foot can move up and down, also on a ratchet joint. There's no rotation. You can angle both the front and the back toes to help with the stability, they're die-cast metal. And finally, we have a very good ankle pivot, but unfortunately because of how it's constructed, it's often difficult to make the feet touch the ground correctly. Generally they're going to angle outwards, and that's not ideal. The articulation in this guy is just crazy. He's got a lot of joints, all of them very tight, and with which you can put him in a lot of different dynamic poses. Plus, did you see the material that they use for both the elbow and the knee joints? They are entirely made of die-cast metal. And I'm just glad that this guy is just as posable as their previous Unicron figure, although he might just stand like this on the shelf. But yeah, damn it, is this figure just mind-blowing, because on top of everything that we just talked about, its massive size is obviously the most impressive thing about it. For a size comparison, here he is next to SH Figuarts Iron Man, Masterpiece Movie Bumblebee, Unique Toys Optimus Prime, my previous review the Black Mamba Studio Series Fallen, and they are almost the same size, with Magic Square Light of Victory, the New Age Bumblebee, and finally here he is with the Magic Square Light of Peace, KO Masterpiece 36 Megatron, Devil Xavier Devastator, and finally with the 01 Studio Unicron. And I gotta say, I love how these two titans look when you put them in fighting poses. They look fantastic together. And overall, I think that's pretty much it about Primus in terms of its robot mode. I truly love how this guy looks, it's an excellent representation of that design, it's highly detailed, very nicely painted, and it's well complemented by a good amount of accessories. Obviously, without mentioning its gigantic size, which I think it's its greatest attraction. An excellent robot mode that obviously demands your attention on the shelf. And now it's time for the transformation. The transformation. I don't like the transformation. Unlike their Unicron figure, the engineering on this guy is a lot less friendly. Let's talk about kittens. You know how there are nice, friendly kittens that invite you to have a good time with them, but at the same time there are unfriendly and aggressive cats that don't invite you to play with them, and if you do you might end up getting hurt? Well, that's what transformations are like. There are some that, while they can be overly complex, they still invite you to play with them and have a good time, while others seem to actively reject you, and if you still try to do them you can end up scratched and bleeding. That's what this guy's transformation is like. Here's the evidence. It's a bit disappointing. Their Unicron figure blew my mind with every step and every panel that I flipped and put in its place. Here, there's a lot more frustration. Fewer things want to connect and stay in their place, and the more detailed surface can make the entire process a lot more painful. It's one of those transformations that personally I'm going to try to do as little as possible after today. And just a quick side note, although I left the towers for the transformation because I'm a masochist, please leave your like for the effort, I do recommend that you take them off before transformation and then put them back on once you're in planet mode. This to avoid stressing the pieces and also to make it harder for the figure to hurt you. And having said all that, at least the resulting planet mode is just a beauty. This literally looks like Cybertron. Even though the transformation is not the most fun process, it's still admirable that that beautiful robot mode can transform into an almost perfect ball. I like the fact that these small details of cities and communities do actually make it feel like this is a populated planet, and they also fill this sphere with a lot of painted and sculpted detail, unlike the huge plain sphere that is Unicron. And as you can see in this mode we have a lot more of those little transparent spheres, so let's quickly see how you have to install them. Alright, we have these two huge ones that go on either side of the sphere. Then we're going to go down one size and we're going to connect the ones that have these double posts on the back in the places that match those two ports. Which, by the way, those two spheres at the bottom were particularly tight, so I had to go in there and try to scrape off a little bit of the excess plastic so that I could finally plug in these pieces. Now we have these 20 that go in all the bigger rounded ports that you can find. Now we have these 36 small ones that go in the second to last smallest holes you can find. And finally, these 14 remaining tiny little things go into the remaining holes, and these are a pain to put on due to their tiny size, so let me just... there we go. And yeah, I know that these little circuits are probably a bit expensive to mass produce, but I think that including a couple for the planet mode would have made it look a lot nicer, just like Unicron's LED in the planet mode's mouth. And those with the tiger eye may realize that this figure is placed on its stand, which seems to be a reference to those space bridges that appear on the first episodes of the J1 cartoon. And you also get these kind of rubbery stickers because I doubt that you want your $300 ball just sliding around on its surface. And we also get these two just to put on the arms of the stand so that it doesn't scrape directly with the figure's paint. That's great, but why not just include 4? Though I do have seen some stress marks, so just watch out there. But since it's not something that you're going to be handling very often, I don't think it's too risky. But yeah, there you have Primus in its Cybertron mode. A beautiful planet mode that may not impose as much as Unicron with his rings, but this one compensates by being a lot more visually attractive in my opinion. And simply just both modes are beautiful. So let's wrap this Titans review up with a final size comparison. Here he is next to Iron Man, Bumblebee, Prime, Magic Square Prime, KO Masterpiece Megatron, and here you can see him with a couple of legend scale figures with which I think he looks better. And finally here he is with Devastator and with 01 Studio Unicron. And I never thought I'd say this, but these two plastic balls look really good together in your shelf. And as you can see, they are pretty much the same size, if you don't count Unicron's ring. But in my opinion, the best way to display them is with Unicron in his robot mode recreating these scenes from the 86 movie, except that one, I don't think he can handle it. There's no way it actually stayed there? I can't believe I actually pulled it off. I have a lot of money on the line, I'm going to take it off. But yeah, all in all, this really is a very good figure. It has a very good robot mode and a very good planet mode. It's just that the bridge between those two modes is not very enjoyable. It's not the worst that I've done, but even then I'd rather do it as little as possible. Either way, I do recommend that you get this figure. And as always, I do wanna thank Shozy Store for helping me get this monster. And particularly in this occasion, I did need the help. And also to all of you who have used my code GABOTFR to support the channel, because without your help, I don't think I would have been able to get this guy. If any one of you is crazy enough to get this guy, just remember to use my code GABOTFR to support the channel, as one crazy guy has already done. As always, links in the description. So finally, let's transform this guy back to his robot mode to give him his final grade. And I'm gonna give him 4 stars. As I said, this is a very good figure in both modes and it has a very imposing presence on your shelf, but that transformation can get really annoying at some points, which didn't happen with their previous figure, and that's unfortunate. But it's still a figure that I do recommend simply because he looks great next to Unicron. So if you're on the fence about getting him, go ahead and buy it, just do be aware of its shortcomings. But anyway, thank you a lot for spending your time watching this review, and I'll see you next week with another review of a figure that is kind of important.